I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove, fix 5. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you.
Walk the dogs, school drop-off, meetings from 10 to 3, take kids to soccer, then no time left for a jog.
When everyone else is relying on you, it's easy to put your needs last. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online, so you can show up for yourself the way you do for others. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/positive.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, we are back. Good and Bad, the musical theme of the week. This is Loose. Good day. All right, we are joined by Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star, their Chiefs beat writer deluxe. Jesse, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. How about you guys?
Oh, I'm okay. So in my effort to simplify things, as we talked about at the beginning of the show today, of course, the big controversy was Ladarius Toney. Kadarius Toney. Did he inform the officials, or did he ask the officials about his lining up before the big play that resulted in a touchdown and one of the most interesting and exciting plays we've seen? So my point is, either he did or he didn't talk to the officials. Did he?
Yeah, we just got done talking with Andy Reid about an hour ago, and Andy Reid said that he did not check with the officials before the play. Said that he normally does. On that play, he didn't. So, if you go back to the film and watch it, you can see Rashee Rice on the opposite end doing that, looking at the official, pointing to him, getting the thumbs up sign, all those sorts of things. But that one is definitely on Kadarius to know where you're supposed to be lined up. I know that Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he meant it this way, but he talked about last night how it was kind of an elementary school thing where, you get lined up correctly and you know where you are. And I think he was meaning to say that normally you don't see that call, but really I think he also could be speaking to just the lack of attention to detail that, most 6th, 7th, 8th graders know where to line up and don't get called for that penalty. So Andy said today that he was most frustrated with just sort of, you plan so many hours, you prepare so much for a game, and to have it come down to that is frustrating. But I think there's a little bit more today culpability on the Chiefs to at least look at this thing and say, hey, push comes to shove, you got to line up right, you got to get the details right, and if you don't, it can definitely cost you football games.
Were you surprised at all by Mahomes and his reaction immediately? I know there was a lot of emotion in the moment, and I know there was some residual effects from the previous week where the officials really did get some stuff wrong and it affected the Chiefs, but this one seemed pretty straightforward, and it seemed like he was trying to maybe get public opinion on his side. We're always talking about the refs, and that didn't happen. So what did you make of what Mahomes had to say and just that vibe overall of him kind of complaining there?
Yeah, guys, I was pretty shocked by what happened last night, to be completely honest with you. And if we're going to be brutally honest about this, the time for the Chiefs to complain about the officiating was last week. That pass interference call was blown. You know what I mean? And it would have given the Chiefs a chance to win the game. But they did take the high road then, and Patrick Mahomes even said, hey, if I throw that ball out there farther for MVS, then it's probably a touchdown. You don't worry about the officials, and I'd rather have the officials let the guys play. I think that was his point last night, was like, let the players decide the game. But you guys spoke to this. This is something pre-snap that's just so obvious. If you're an official lined up looking up at the ball, that if you don't see the ball, if the guy's that far up ahead, it's the flag you have to throw. And me and Sam McDowell, the columnist for the Kansas City Star, were looking at the other 3 instances today in the NFL of receivers getting called for that penalty. And it was sort of fascinating to look at because there really wasn't any warning on those either. There was even one with Amir Smith-Marset, who was actually a Chiefs receiver earlier this year. He got called for one this past week as well, and he goes to the sideline, and there's two coaches yelling at him because it's like, hey, this is something you have to do. This is something that's pretty elementary school. You have to get lined up in the right spot, and so they were putting the blame on him. It's just interesting that Andy Reid never likes talking about officials or officials' calls. Last night, he was turning down questions, any questions that did not mention that call. He basically would refuse to answer questions that were about anything besides that call last night. So that was way out there. And then Mahomes doubling down on it when the previous week we saw him take ownership of his own play and then what had happened. I do think there's a sense of this that everything sort of bubbled up. You know what I mean? And Patrick Mahomes really can't yell at MVS on the field, can't yell at Kadarius Toney, can't yell at his right tackle for keep false starting, but he can yell at an official, and maybe that's kind of the public display showing his frustration of all the things that are going on, and the official is actually the one he can yell at, and his teammates will get their feelings hurt by it.
Jesse Newell with us from the Kansas City Sharks. So Kadarius Toney, brought in from the Giants last year, certainly looks the part, as do others in this wide receiving core. However, more drops yesterday. I guess Rice has taken steps forward to where they feel like maybe he's going to be the real deal. But you can understand the frustration of Patrick Mahomes. I'm not giving him a pass on his behavior last night, but it's been a frustrating season for the Chiefs. Yet here they are, 8-5, certainly right in the middle of the playoff hunt. Now we wonder, will they go on the road in the playoffs? What do they have to accomplish over these final 4 games to make people feel like, okay, this is more like it?
Yeah, I mean, you start with winning them. I mean, I remember going before the season, I predicted the Chiefs win 12-5, and it's just funny how potentially they're probably going to get to 12-5. It's just the way you get there is going to be, it kind of goes to Armageddon when the Chiefs lose 4 of 6. I mean, that's not something that fans around here are used to, and that's kind of the standard and the bar that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have set. But if you guys notice, we can't look at these games like robots. You know what I mean? There is an emotional part to this game, and it sure did seem like the Chiefs kind of checked out after that call last night. They had 3 more downs to come and get the first down. It wasn't like they didn't overcome penalties in other drives last night. It's just everything boiled over, and they just couldn't get over that and had no chance to win after that. So I do think if we are just looking at this very mechanically, very rationally, the Chiefs had some good things happen last night. And what we're talking about the offense isn't like that they're the Jets and they can't move the football ever. It's that they're moving the ball up and down the field, and then you're getting a wide receiver screen or a running back screen tip interception, or you're getting Rashee Rice, who has been very productive for you, fumbling the ball in a crucial moment. And so I don't know, like if I were the Chiefs, I'd rather have it this way, right? I mean, you kind of have the feeling right now that they're going to screw up at some moment. But then there's certain games like the Raiders where they got down 14-0 and then they just decided they weren't going to screw up, and they score almost every single possession. They win the game 31-17 going away. So it feels like the pieces are there. It feels like they're moving the football. It feels like they're getting something in their run game going. It feels like they're passing the ball with some efficiency lately. It's just these weird mess-ups that keep them from kind of building confidence and going the direction they think they need to go. So I think that can be fixed. I think the next 4 games can help them fix that. And if you look at the list of the quarterbacks they're playing, that definitely will help out as well. That this defense has performed well a lot of times this season against good quarterbacks and good receivers. They're not facing many of those the rest of the way. So I think, a human game being played by humans, I think them building confidence is a big thing. And just starting with another game where they could limit mistakes, drive the ball on the field, and then not shoot themselves in the foot. They put a couple of those together, I think they'll still be feeling pretty good about themselves heading into the playoffs and potentially the kind of run they can make while still having Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
So I guess if you want to look at it optimistically or revisionist history type of stuff, you can look at the pass interference and Kadarius Toney lining up offside, and hey, those things go the other way. They're 10-3. Do you think the margin of error is that thin for the Chiefs right now? We're seeing it pretty much every week. Is it one play that's the difference between wins and losses? They're losing the turnover battle, which isn't necessarily predictable from year to year, but is what we're seeing real, that it's kind of one play can make a difference for the Chiefs week to week?
Yeah, it is, and I think you're on something there, Jeff. I mean, the margin of error is smaller because this team is not as good as a year ago. I mean, we can all agree on that. Like the defense is better, but the offense is 2 ticks off what it was. Now, I think when you go big picture and go to the full context of this, think about last year, though. The Bills were really good last year. The Bengals were really good. There were other teams in the AFC where it's like, I mean, that road to get to the Super Bowl is pretty tough. This year, it's not that. You know what I mean? And we all laser focus on the Chiefs and their problems, and they do have problems. They know they've got problems. They've lost 4 or 6. But, what are the roadblocks this year compared to a year ago? And I just don't think they're as difficult. I mean, the Ravens looked really vulnerable yesterday. I mean, the Bills are probably one of the AFC's best teams, so they might not make the playoffs. That's no guarantee at this point in the season with how the hole that they built up for themselves. I mean, outside of that, Miami is a good team. You probably wouldn't want to play them in Miami, but Chiefs beat them already this season, so it's not a team that you can't overcome. So I agree with you. The margin of error is smaller, and then what you're talking about, the turnovers, I was looking up they have stats out there kind of like the expected points added of individual plays in the game. That Mahomes interception was minus 6.9 expected points added in the game. And so, yeah, those things are huge. And it kind of reminds me of a few years ago when the Chiefs had this happen where they went through their big lull. They had all these fluky turnovers. Tyreek Hill was kind of tossing the ball to the other team. And then all of a sudden they shut those off and the offense looked really good again. And so that's kind of what I'm saying here is that, if you're going to be not as successful as you once were, this is the way you want to have it. That they're losing these sorts of games on 2 or 3 plays, and things are a little flukier than what you would expect. It's not like they're not moving the football. They are. It's just these weird things are going against them, and they're not being focused on the things that win you football games. So I think it can be corrected. I don't think this team is as good as years past, but I don't think the other teams around them are as good as years past. So that still gives them a really good shot at potentially even making a Super Bowl if they get some of these things aligned and play their best in the right games. And obviously that's still ahead for the Chiefs. They still have an opportunity to do that coming up here in the next couple months.
Yeah, I mean, you just look around. We're talking with Jesse Newell. Just look around at the NFL and what's happening from week to week. There's nobody really grabbing a foothold here and being a dominant team. I was close to kind of trying to buy into the Houston Texans. They got thumped yesterday by the Jets. I don't even know who's good anymore. I think the Chiefs, if I were a betting man, I'd still have them at pretty good odds to get to the Super Bowl. So, Jesse, talking with Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star, that was so out of character from Mahomes. What do you think his next move is?
Yeah, so he'll talk with us on Wednesday. I think you guys are right. I think he was sort of wanting to drum up public support, but it's obvious that has not come. I mean, almost everybody to a man has basically said, hey, this is the call that has to be made, and it's a clear and obvious call. So I think we'll see a little bit of a mea culpa on Wednesday. I think he will back off of those statements and basically just say he was frustrated in the moment and needs to control what he can control moving forward, and basically give more of the message that he gave last week after the pass interference call, which is like, hey, if I control what I control, then this team will be better in the future, and you don't have to worry about these things determining close games late. So I do anticipate that there's something different for Patrick Mahomes coming up on Wednesday, but I also anticipate that him and Andy Reid are probably going to get fined, and we haven't seen that in a long time in the NFL for people to publicly basically call out officials and then get fined for it. But I think both of those guys were sort of aiming for that yesterday, and I think both of them are probably going to get it here in the end and get sanctioned for what they said and the very intentional comments they made last night to make a point.
So let's fast forward to Week 18. I think it's against the Chargers. What will the Chiefs be playing for at that point? Do you think the division will hang in the balance? Is Denver a real threat? What are the Chiefs playing for in Week 18, January 7th?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to think that Denver's going to stick in this thing now. Would the Chiefs want to be one game up at this point with 4 games left and to kind of have some pressure that they put on themselves? They would not want that, but the schedule does lighten up here. I was looking at the New York Times odds of this, and it said if the Chiefs run the table, I think they have around a 35% chance still of getting the 1 seed. Go down some of these other teams' schedules, like the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens had like Murderer's Row down the stretch. So it's not out of the realm of possibility the Chiefs could still sneak on that one line. We talked about how, because all these teams are kind of bunched together, the 1 seed would be really important. I mean, getting that bye and then home field advantage against a bunch of other teams that are kind of like you, that would be a big deal. Plus, to potentially avoid, if you're the 2 seed and get the Bills in the first round, that wouldn't feel like much of a reward for a season's worth of work. So that one seed could be a big advantage there. So I don't know. I mean, again, depending on how this thing shakes out, the Chiefs have rested starters in the past when there's nothing to play for in that Week 18 game. So I guess there's a possibility out there they could be locked into the 2 or the 3 and potentially just have that solidified and not have to worry about that and rest their guys and get ready for the playoffs. The other weird thing that could happen, like I said, is it's very clear the Bills are better than, like, the Steelers. You know what I mean? Or the Bills, at least based off yesterday, are better than the Texans. If the Bills were locked into the 7 seed and the Chiefs knew they could be the 2 or the 3, I don't know. You might want to finagle and get out of that 2 seed. It's weird to think of that way and to sort of tank your way into avoiding the Bills, but I just don't think that's a team you want to see in the playoffs, especially with the dynamic plays that we saw Josh Allen can make at certain points in last game. So I would think they'd most likely either be playing for the 2 or 3 seed and positioning. And we know in the years past, sometimes the Chiefs have gotten the 2 seed and still gotten home field because the 1 seed is lost before them. But at this point, them competing for the 1, probably not, but still a possibility. We'll see how these last few weeks play out. There'll be something to play for, but I still think at this point, most likely, Chiefs play a 2 or 3 seed. It'll be fascinating to see how Patrick Mahomes potentially plays in a road playoff game.
Jesse, really appreciate you fitting us in today. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo Stove Fix 5. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you.
Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/positive.
Reimagine this holiday season with more capability and more adventure in Kia's ever-ready lineup. This winter, gift yourself what you really want during Kia's Season of Giving Back sales event. Kia is offering great deals on the capable Sorrento and the spacious Sportage, and deals on even more vehicles like the all-electric EV6 and the fun-to-drive Forte. So visit your local Kia dealer and explore all your newfound possibilities by enjoying Kia's Season of Giving Back. Kia, movement that inspires.
Call 800-333-4KIA for details. Always drive safely. Event ends 1/2/24.